Forgiveness or forgiving someone is a process, but what I should always remember is that the past will never change. Today, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the wrongs that these two people have done to me and finally say, I forgive them. There's honestly no need to keep holding a grudge on them if it won't bring me any source of happiness. I pray and hope that they acknowledge their wrongs and find it within to forgive themselves and change for the better. From this whole experience, I learned to never allow any human to make me feel small, unwanted, unworthy, or unimportant. I learned that I do not need validation from anyone. I do not need anyone to make me feel safe and beautiful. The things I thought I needed from these people are things that I needed to cultivate or get from myself. So I thought that the moment I start forgiving people for the things that they did to me, I'll start to be happy. But I guess that wasn't in the books, so I never really got to be happy at all.
Aspiration in life would be to be happy.
No ways, dog. Let's start again. Hey guys, my name is Precious Omphithetse and welcome to my channel. So if you are a returning subscriber, I don't know how to do this, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you are new here on this channel and you only came to this channel to watch this video, please go watch other videos because it will make sense as to why we're talking about this today. So last week, not really last week, but yeah, a few days ago, I posted a video where we were talking about self-sabotage. And some people did reach out to me and say that they learned something, which I'm grateful for. If you did learn something, thank you. If you didn't learn something, I don't know, I really don't know what to say. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my videos. It really means a lot to me. So on last week's video we were talking about self-sabotage, and in that video we did talk much about self-hating and all of that, and I gave tips on how we can work on preventing self-sabotage. And I also did say on my very first video that I am on a self-love journey that I long started, and like I did say that self-love journey is, there's no end to self-love journey, right? And in the process of loving yourself, there are different things that you have to go through, different steps and stages that you have to go through, right? And for me, in defining self-love, which I'm going to do a video on it later about that, in defining love for myself or self-love, I have included self-forgiveness, which is forgiving yourself, right? So for the things that you've been doing to yourself, the self-sabotaging, going back to that toxic relationship or toxic friendships, not standing up for yourself in situations where I don't know, but yeah, you get me, you know what I mean. So today what we are going to be talking about is basically forgiving ourselves for for the things that we did or the decisions that we've made that have caused or led to our pain, or do you know what I mean? Exactly. So Oprah Winfrey says that forgiveness is letting go of the hope that the past will be any different. If you guys listened to what I wrote on my diary, I did say that the past will never change. The past will always be there. The past is something that it happened and it's there. It's like, you know, a movie, when you record a movie, it's always there. Movies always there. Movies that were recorded in 1946 are still there, so it's always there. That is how the past is. It's always there, right? But the one thing we need to do as people is to let go of the past. Sometimes the past is just there to haunt us for no reason, and us always remembering how things were, or this happened, or that happened, this person hurt me, I went back to this person, this and that. That is literally going to haunt you for the rest of your life if you keep going back to the past. So if there's one thing I always tell people to do, is move on from their past, because sometimes we beat ourselves to it because we are always overthinking the situations. I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have went back, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have made that decision. But what is the reason as to why we're supposed to forgive ourselves, and why do I link self-forgiveness to self-love? Now the problem is with us as human, we are our biggest critique, right? we can easily forgive people for what they did to us, but yet we cannot forgive ourselves for the things that we did to ourselves. It's easy for you to forgive your boyfriend that has been cheating on you for 5 years now consistently, but it's not easy for you to forgive yourself for going back to him even when you knew better. Sometimes you just have to forgive and let go. And what is this forgiveness? What are we talking about when we say we should forgive someone, right? Forgiveness is letting go of feelings that burden you or that anger you, in terms of if someone did something wrong to you, you just let go of those emotions and you just, I don't know if you guys have heard before that when you forgive someone or when you forgive something, you just, your soul becomes lighter because you're just letting go of those emotions that you had towards this person for hurting you, for doing this, that, and that to you, for stealing something from you, from doing something that you have held and that led to you holding a grudge towards them, right? So the moment you start letting go of that grudge and those heavy emotions and feelings, what I'm trying to say is sometimes forgiving people isn't enough. Sometimes we need to go to the extent of forgiving ourselves. Forgive yourself for the sabotage that you've done. Sabotaging yourself so many times, you have to forgive yourself for that. You have to forgive yourself for example, for people who struggle with overthinking like I do. When I say something, sometimes after that I go back to my room and I just stress over what I said to the person. I feel like that was wrong. I feel like maybe the person didn't receive it well, so I get so obsessively over it and I think that I was wrong at that time. So usually what I'm trying to say is, you have that situation as well, try to forgive yourself for saying that. Like, it's okay to say that to yourself. Precious, I'm sorry, it's okay, let's move on. Letting go of those emotions towards yourself, I think that literally makes you the happiest person in the world. I'm not even gonna lie. I know there are other things that you can do to be happy, but I personally feel like the moment you start forgiving yourself, I don't know why I keep feeling like this video doesn't make sense, but I personally wanted to make this video in order to like talk to myself in a way, because I feel like there are things that the decisions that I've made or things that I've done that I still haven't forgiven myself for, because not every time when certain things happen I beat myself up to it. I think about it, and like Oprah said, letting go of the hope that the past would change. And I also wrote on my diary that the past will never change. The past will be the past, and the past will remain the past. So if I was able to write that on my own, then why is it hard to let go of the hope that the past will change? Because already I believe, or I wrote, or at the time I believed that letting go of the past because it will never change will help me. But still, I wasn't able to forgive myself for things that I have done in those situations. I managed to forgive people, but I still had a heavy heart. I still was angry. I still was mad, until I realized that I'm mad at myself. I'm angry at the things that I did. I'm angry at the decisions that I made, but I'm unable to forgive myself. A lot of times we're unable to forgive ourselves because of the self-hate that we have. Because of the self-hate that we have. Like I said, I think sometime in this video I did say that we are our biggest critique, and sometimes if we could just start appreciating ourselves and forgiving ourselves, like I'll keep saying this word, forgive ourselves for the things that we did, forgive ourselves for not knowing better, forgiving ourselves for making a decision that we are regretting today, right? I think that especially as the youth, we're very young people that we're still going to make so many more mistakes in life. We're still going to do so many things in our lives that so many things that we're going to look back at and wish that we never done. So imagine at our age right now, at 21 years old, I'm still mad at myself, I'm still angry at myself, I still hold a grudge against myself for not forgiving myself for the things that I did when I was 18 years old, when I was 16, when I was 12 years old, when I was 6 years old. How am I going to be now when I'm 40? Because now that the fact that the grudge or the anger accumulates as I grow, I do something this year, I did something when I was 5 years old. I'm still angry at myself for what I did when I was 5 years old. Now I do things as I grow, right? I make mistakes as I grow. I was 6 years old, I did something. I was 7 years old, I did something. So all those things are accumulating in me. Now imagine when I'm 21, at 21 years old, I'm still holding these grudges. At 41, if I'm still holding these grudges, do I think my happiness will be there? Because I have attached happiness to forgiving myself. Not really saying that forgiveness comes or stems from that, but I'm just saying that for the purpose of what I wrote on the book, on my diary, I wrote that I'll be happy after I forgive other people. But the fact that I attached happiness to forgiveness, why is it that I'm still not happy? I'm still not happy because I'm still holding on to grudges towards myself. I have let go of grudges toward the grudges that I had towards other people. I've let go of those. I've let go of the hope that the past will change for them. But what about me? In terms of what I did, I'm still holding on to the hope that my past will change, that people will not see me for the little girl that did this when I was 6 years old. I still wish and pray that people could forget things that I did back then. I still pray and hope that someone could forget that I once fell because I was running and I tripped over myself. I tripped on my own pants and I fell. I'm still holding a grudge towards myself because I'm wondering why the hell did I wear those long pants? I'm wondering why the hell I was running in the first place. So if I learn to start forgiving myself now, I think by the time I get to 40, I'll be free, because the more I hold on to these grudges, the more they grow. Now I'm growing with them and I'm getting older with these things, and as I grow, I make bigger and bigger mistakes. Now the smallest mistakes that we did when we were young, we're still holding on to them. Now imagine or think about the biggest mistakes that we're going to make as time goes on. You're going to sign a contract that we're going to regret all our lives. We're going to buy a car and I'm going to regret buying the car at the time, or buy a car before I buy myself a house. I'm probably going to regret that, or buy a house before I buy a car. I'm probably going to regret that. Now those are bigger things that I think they're bigger than what we have done so far. I think going back to your toxic ex that has hurt your feelings, as compared to staying in a marriage for 10 years. I'm just giving an example. Staying in a marriage for 10 years, even though you can see that you're not happy, that is a lot more bigger than going back to your toxic ex in that moment when you were 18 years old. I'm just saying that's my thoughts on that. But I think that if we learn to forgive ourselves for the things that we did to ourselves when we were a bit younger, then I think we would grow to become better and better people, right? And yeah, I think forgiving ourselves will help us become better people. And I think that if we start taking the steps towards that, then we will let go, offload the heavy feelings that we have towards ourselves. And yeah, that is something that I had to tell myself for the longest time, that I need to forgive myself even for the most stupidest decisions that I made. I need to forgive myself for what's that thing, going down on that bottle of Russian beer. I need to forgive myself for going down on that bottle, yeah, 1818. I need to forgive myself for telling someone something that I wasn't supposed to tell them. I need to forgive myself for those small things. And in as much as I would think that I've forgiven myself, I've let go of them, they still haunt me, because sometimes when someone brings it up, I get embarrassed. Now, if you forgive yourself for the things that you did, when someone brings them up, you don't really get embarrassed, or you don't get some sort of feelings towards it, because you've forgiven yourself. Now, if you haven't forgiven yourself for going back to your toxic ex, and I bring it up as your friend, and it still makes you feel ashamed, or you still get hurt over it, that means you haven't found time to forgive yourself for that. And I think that we need to start forgiving ourselves for these little things. It might hurt, it might be embarrassing, but the moment you start acknowledging that, you know what, at that time I had a moment of weakness, and I need to forgive myself for having a moment of weakness. It is normal, it's okay, it happens. It's not like someone will hold a gun to your head and force you not to do that. It was your decision at the time. You made it. Now let's try to forgive ourselves for it and move past it, because the more you hold on to it, the more unhappy you become. That is according to what I wrote in my diary, because I attached happiness to self-forgiveness. Not really self-forgiveness, but forgiving other people. So I think that is what I really wanted to talk about, that self-forgiveness for me is another stage of self-love, because as you forgive yourself, you basically, that shows how much you love yourself, because you're forgiving yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, because because you guys always forgive people that hurt your feelings, and then you think you love them. That's what we gonna say. But I personally feel like self-forgiveness is part, or it is another aspect of self-love, because you're showing yourself love by forgiving yourself. And another element that I like to attach to self-love is being patient. Guys, you don't just wake up in the morning and forgive yourself for something that you did. Of course it takes time. Of course you're going to take time in order to finally reach a point where you're like, you know what, I've forgiven myself, I've moved past it. So I believe that in forgiving ourselves, we also need to know that we have to be patient with ourselves, because it's not going to be easy. And as much as self-love journey itself it's not an easy process, I believe that self-forgiveness is also not an easy process. It's a journey as it is, as much as self-love journey is, but as much as it's an aspect of self-love journey, it's also one aspect that you need to take your time. And even if it takes 5 years for you to forgive yourself for certain things, let it take 5 years. Be patient with yourself. Tomorrow you might think you're forgiven. Today you might think you're forgiving yourself for something that you did 10 years ago, and then tomorrow you remember it again, and then you beat yourself up to it, and then you realize that you actually haven't forgiven yourself for it. So it takes time to forgive yourself. You need to acknowledge it. You need to sit with yourself. You need to assess the situation. You need to reflect and do all the work in order for you to reach a point where you're like, you know what, actually, Precious, I'm sorry. Right. Now, I know you guys are probably wondering how you are going to start this process. How am I going to do it, right? So I have a few tips on my book. I think I have like 5 tips on my little book that I wrote down that I want to share with you guys. The first tip that I have for self-forgiveness is acknowledging your feelings. I think I want to mix these two, acknowledging your feelings and acknowledging what you did. So I think I'll start with acknowledging what you did. Acknowledge the decision that you made at the time. Let's take an example. I did say in my previous video that my generation loves to talk about romance. So if, let's say, you went back to your toxic ex, right? Now, we're going to acknowledge the decision that you made in that moment. You made a decision in that moment. It was probably a moment of weakness, and you made the decision and you went back. Now, how does that make you feel? Now that you're hurt, even after you went back, that was the decision that you made at the time. How does the decision make you feel now, right? When you think about the decision that you made, it hurts your feelings. It makes you feel like you're nothing. It makes you feel worthless. It makes you feel sad. And you're thinking about it, and you know, the more you think about it, the more you feel those emotions again. Now, take those emotions. Okay, as we were saying, take those emotions now that you're feeling those emotions, take those emotions, write them down, or record yourself while you express your feelings. Because some people do video diaries, some people do diaries, normal diaries where you write down. I normally journal. I like to write on my journals. So I personally just take my journals and I write down my feelings and my emotions at the time. So after you write your feelings and your emotions, right, we go into the deep step, right? You apologize to yourself. We both know that when someone did something wrong to you, when you did something wrong to someone, for them to forgive you, you have to go to them and ask for forgiveness. But even though some people I do forgive people without them asking for forgiveness. I've forgiven so many people that have never asked for forgiveness from me. But sometimes if you really want to know if someone forgave you, you always go and ask for forgiveness, right? So the one thing that I would say you should do after you write down all these emotions, whatever it is that you felt at the time, apologize to yourself. You're also human. You're also another person to yourself. You're still a person. You're a human being. In as much as you would expect someone to apologize to you when they did you wrong, you did yourself wrong. So it's time for you to apologize to yourself. And I know in as much as it's hard, but it sounds easy, but it's also hard. And it's hard. It sounds hard, but it's also easy. It sounds easy, but it's also hard. So what I'm trying to say is, sometimes forgiving yourself, or apologizing to yourself rather, might be just, Precious, I'm sorry. And maybe sometimes I'm still in that state of feeling the emotions that I felt at the time when I went back to my toxic ex, just an example. And in the midst of that sadness, in the midst of that ball of emotion, I just pause and I say, Precious, I'm sorry. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is hard. When you just wake up in the morning, you say, Precious, I'm sorry, girl, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, that is easy. But if you say I'm sorry in the midst of those emotions, where you're feeling everything and all of those things are, you're feeling all of those things basically, that is where I'd love to believe the hard part is, right? Apologizing to yourself in the midst of those emotions. You guys know, okay, I keep on saying you guys know, like you guys know. Someone told me a story the other day, and not really the other day, but a long time ago, a while back, that when her boyfriend apologizes to her when she's still crying and she's still sad, she forgives him then, as compared to if he apologizes when she's laughing or when they're just over the whole situation, or she's not even in that state. And I thought to myself, okay, that is quite weird. Until one day it happened to me where I was in that state of that ball of emotion, and I said I'm sorry to myself, and it really hit me. I cried because I didn't think it would hit me in as much as I anticipated it. Like, when you think about it, you don't think it's going to hurt you until you're in that moment where you're like, okay, Precious, I'm so sorry. And you start to feel that actually this is hard, this hurts, right? Whew, it really does hurt. But the next thing that I would love to give you as a next tip is to not focus on the bad parts or the sad parts, but focus on the good part and the lessons that you're supposed to learn, right? On the journey to self-love, I believe that the road is not straight, right? The road is curvy. So when you're from this point and then you move in that direction and then you go back and your road turns. So when your road is going to, let's say it's from here, right? You're moving, you curve here, and then it goes back, and then it curves right next to your starting point. So when it curves right next to your starting point, we start to cry and ask God, why do I keep going back to things that hurt my feelings? Why me? Why this? Why that? And the one thing that I believe God is trying to teach us in that moment is the lessons that we were supposed to learn when we were in that situation. So God keeps on taking you back to the things that you felt, to the things that hurt your feelings so many times in order for you to learn something from it. Now, the problem is when we're in that state, we don't think of learning what we're supposed to be learning in that situation. Rather, we think of, why me? Why should this happen to me? In a pitiful manner, like in a way that is just sad and just depressing. But the moment we start to learn that we're actually supposed to be learning something and focusing on the lessons that you're supposed to be learning in that situation, that is what I'm trying to say, right? So when you start forgiving yourself, you start learning the lessons that you were supposed to learn, because when you learn lessons or the lesson that you're supposed to learn, you'd find that most of the lessons that you're learning now are things that are going to help you in future, right? In future, you're not going to make the same decision that you made here because the lesson that you already learned. That is why you need to focus more on the lessons and rather not the negatives or the sad parts that, oh, I went back, oh, this and that. So you forgive yourself, and then you start learning the things that you should have learned before you made that decision that you're forgiving yourself for, right? And then the next thing and the last thing that I want to talk about is changing those habits, right? The moment you start forgiving yourself for the habits that you did or the behaviors that you did, or you know what I'm talking about. So when you start forgiving yourself, now that we are, what am I saying? Oh, now that, no, wait. I'm saying focus on your lessons, right? So after you focus on the lessons that you learned, now you move on to changing the habits or the things that you're forgiving yourself for. Because you know that I have this tendency of going back to my toxic situation. Now I need to change this, right? You understand how that made you feel after you made the decision, how it affected you. You're forgiving yourself for it. Now you need to change it, because if you're not going to change these habits, you're going to keep or you're going to repeatedly do or you're going to repeatedly make the same mistakes, and then you go back to holding on to grudges towards yourself, hating yourself, and then you have to go through the process of forgiving yourself. You know what I mean? It becomes a whole lot of process. So if you change those habits, we are preventing you from going back to doing the same habits, and then we have to go back through the route of forgiving ourselves. I hope that makes sense, right? And then lastly, be patient. Like I said, the process is long, the process is hard, the process is tough. It might sound simple, it might sound easy, but it is very, very tough, and it is a very tough process. And I hope you guys are in the journey with me, because I'm in the journey of forgiving myself. And I think that forgiving ourselves is something that we all need to work on. We all need to repeatedly work on. I feel like forgiving ourselves takes time. You might forgive yourself in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years, in the next 5 years. It takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself. So just because I might have forgiven myself, I might have found forgiveness within my heart and forgiven myself and moved on, that doesn't mean you should also do the same at your age, because we're at the same age and we're at the same we're not really in the same level, because people move at their own pace. That is the phrase that is normally used. So in as much as people move in their own pace, that applies to self-forgiveness as well. So yeah, let us forgive ourselves for sabotaging ourselves. Let us forgive ourselves for the bad decisions that we made. Let us forgive ourselves for the things that we did that still haunt us, that we still hold grudges towards ourselves for. Let us forgive ourselves for yeah, you know what I'm saying. Let us forgive ourselves for those things, guys. That was the topic for today, self-forgiveness. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys took something from this video. I know I was rambling on, I know I was saying so many things that don't make sense, but I hope you guys are learning something from my videos. If you are, please do hit the like button and share the video if you can with people that you think deserve to hear the message that you got from this video. Share it with your friends and family. Comment down below what you think or what you learned, or if you love the video, just say whatever you gotta say down below. I really appreciate it. And